I'm going to turn it over first for the water update to our utilities director and acting city administrator Will Sadler, but I know also that Commissioner Vinke and Commissioner Roberts are going to add to this water update as well, as they went this past Wednesday, and attended a Lake Erie Waterkeepers event and learned a lot, and it brought back a lot of knowledge as well. But we're also just going to get that update from our utilities director, so I'll turn it over to you first, Will.
Okay, yeah, really my update has to do more with the estimated cost of the options that I presented, a month and a half ago. So you've got ozone, advanced oxidation, and there's different types of ozone depending on what kind of level you want to do. And then I guess the Cadillac option would be the reverse osmosis. So the cost for the ozone or advanced oxidation, depending on which variation you use, is going to be between $6.5 and $8 million, which it's very doable for us, even in a worst case scenario. If we had to do it, go through the state revolving fund, low interest loan. We've done projects like this before in this price range, so it would not be a tremendous cost to the residents. It would just be funded over a period of 20 or 30 years, however we decided to do it. So I think that'd be any of those options would be great.
Can you give us an idea of what that translates to for a cost for a resident possibly?
No.
I just wondered if you had
Maybe next time I could.
All right, sorry.
A couple bucks a month probably over a course of 20 years.
Oh.
There you go. She's got it figured out. The RO was a little bit more, I think.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to be sure though. So we're going to Monroe, the city of Monroe, and is there a different city that was listed on that request?
Oregon is what they talked about.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I misread it then today. They use the one you just spoke about, the ozone,
Yes, correct.
oxidation.
Correct.
Yep, that
They
one.
do. They use advanced oxidation.
Advanced oxidation.
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay, and in our previous reports from 2019 or 18, it pulled out that it's 99% removal of the MIB and the geosmin, and it's also about $12,000 to $13,000 per year cost. Do you think that's correct?
Those costs would probably go up.
Up.
So the operation, these costs, so for the advanced oxidation, the estimate now is about $7 million.
Right.
That does not include the annual operating and maintenance costs. So that's going to go up a little bit, just like everything has. So, but it could also save us some money on some other things, just because the treatment method is going to change somewhat. So it's all going to be a chemical kind of thing. But those are all things that we can get answers to before we make a decision
Okay.
on what to do.
In the Tetra Tech study, I mean, they said it was 99% removal of the algae that's causing the taste and odor. And Monroe has had this
Yeah,
success.
yeah, Monroe's had this treatment for a long time. So Monroe actually is the oldest continuously operated water treatment plant in the state. They've been there since 1924 and haven't moved. They've upgraded multiple times, including the oxidation treatment method. So they've used this for a long time, and their taste and odor complaints, they say, are few and far between. So it is a proven technology. We would still have to go through a pilot study, which essentially is bring in a small version of the treatment and just run the water through there and test. But it would have to be done at a certain time of year, because as we know, the taste and odor is really bad in the spring and really bad in the fall. So we would have to time it right, and we would have to hope for a crappy lake, even though we don't want to do that. But you'd want that, because you want to get good data. So yeah, the reverse osmosis, that's $25 million plus. So that's really reaching out there. As you mentioned, we are going to go visit the city of Monroe, their water treatment plant. There was a pretty good infographic on the Waterkeepers site that kind of compared our treatment method to Monroe, and I think it was either Oregon or Toledo. And it's just They're very similar, it's just the filtration is a little bit different and where they put this in the process. The only thing that was really missing on that infographic that I can think of was it didn't take into consideration that we have something that they don't have, and that's well water. So we use, at least 50% of our water is well water, which does not have the organics that the surface water does. So that's really the only difference, but it's a very good infograph, or whatever you want to call it, to kind of show you how those treatment processes compare to each other. So I think any of these that we choose down the road would be a very good option.
When we look at this, so we have the water that's coming from the wells, that will then go into the plant, and then the water from the lake will be drawn into the ozone process.
Yep.
And then mix with the water from the wells.
Correct. And that where that happens in the plant would be determined. I'm not exactly sure, because at some point they have to get chlorinated together. So yeah, so right now that's how it works. We get water coming in from the wells, water coming in from the lakes, they blend together, run it through the treatment process. This would be a little bit different. The well water would stay separate. This step would be an extra step, go through there, then combine, and then go through the process. So yeah.
What are you looking at for the time frame of applying if we were to do that advanced oxidation?
Whatever we choose, if we want to consider, obviously the best thing to do would be apply for grants, but we all know that those are very competitive and they're hit and miss. So we don't want to just sit around and wait. So if we want to go through the low interest loan procedure, we would have to complete what's called a notice of intent by November 1st, which is a very simple questionnaire of what do you want to do and how are you going to fund it. So that's pretty simple. So we can get that turned in by November 1st. So we would just say, hey, we're looking at upgrading our water treatment plant. This is why. This is what we're looking at. We'll throw a number at it. If the number is 6, I'll throw it at 8, just to inflate it a little bit. And then the next step after that is we would have a meeting with the folks at Eagle to get a better idea of what we're looking at. And then it's either May 1st or June 1st, because the dates are different. One is clean water and one is drinking water. There's a deadline to submit a project plan. So we would have to bring someone on board to write a project plan for us. And that would be not a full-blown engineered study, but a pretty in-depth study on what we want to do, how much it's going to cost, what are the other options, why we're going this way. So that would be due by, I believe it's June 1st. And then at some point, and this is where I got to get some answers on whether or not, one, do we have to have a pilot study? And if we do we have to do that before we submit a project plan, which would mean we'd have to do it next spring, just to kind of keep the ball rolling. I would guess a pilot study is probably going to be $400,000. So we'd have to find a way to fund that, which, we can look at rates and make some adjustments on rates if we have to. But let's say that's best case scenario. But again, you're kind of putting the cart before the horse, because you may not score high enough, because it's a scoring matrix. And even the SRF projects are very competitive. We've scored very well lately, so that's good. So if we do score well, then they'll make a decision probably late summer or early fall of next year, and that's when the real work starts. That's when we start design, and we'll have probably about 8 to 9 months to do design work and get everything turned in for construction to start in 2028. So that is a pretty tight schedule, and it would be a lot to have that happen. But
Do you have the emerging threats that Eagle has, the $10 million in grants that's out there? Is obviously that's even super competitive, more competitive throughout the state, but would that pay for piloting potentially?
I asked for it. We have not heard back yet. I don't know if they've actually gotten together to discuss who's asking for what, but we did ask for that to see if it would cover pilot testing. It's a $10 million fund with the state of Michigan for what they call emerging contaminants, and algae is considered one. So it is an option to use that. Yep.
And then talking about the fifth well.
We asked for that too.
Okay, so that was part of,
We just threw a bunch of stuff at it
Okay.
and said, take this back to your boss and let us know. We'll take it all.
okay. And within the timeline for that, I'm assuming that's a completely different project scope and plan compared to oxidation, but maybe quicker since we have
The well?
established wells.
Oh yeah, that would be super cool. We've already started the work on that. We're still waiting to hear back from Eagle on whether or not they're even going to allow it, but we're well underway on that one.
So what are you thinking if they said yes? Like what, how fast?
For a fifth well, now just remember that just because we get a fifth well doesn't mean we can use that
No,
fifth
but
well.
you have one for a backup, right?
You're probably still talking, drilling a well and getting the pipe, it doesn't take long, it's just the planning of it, so 8 to 12 months. And then I had a meeting with some old friends and talked groundwater, so they've given me a few things to look into, so we can kind of do that at the same time, kind of take two different paths. We're not going to get rid of the lake, we just have to face that we're going to have that lake, and so we need to figure out how to treat that better, but we also, if there's groundwater out there somewhere, we need to go try to find it, as long as it's close by.
Well, at the open house, there was a lady, and I'm sorry I didn't write her name down, but was willing, she was a grant writer, and was willing to help the city, and she offered her services. I wondered, did we reach out to her?
She did email us. I have not had a chance to email her back, but I will. It's definitely worth any help we can get, yeah.
I'm just trying to think if there's anything that we could find that could also help, that could behoove us to do something.
Absolutely.
And I contacted our contacts through MML, Michigan Municipal League, and asked them about the next state appropriations budget, earmarks, essentially, for lack of a better word. And she gave me the list of who received funding for water concerns in their areas, very small projects. But I spoke with 2 out of the 3 who received. One was clearly just lead line replacement. That's all they were doing. It was just lead line. It was, which we already are doing. So I didn't reach out to that mayor and administrator. The other one that received the most amount of money was that they were required by Eagle to move their wells because they were being contaminated by an old gas station. So it was a requirement by Eagle, not that they wanted to, not that they wanted to spend any money on this, but it's been an ongoing thing for them for the last 7 to 15 years. They said they started about 7 to 15 years fixing their water issues. So that's why they got money. Another one was 140 houses in this tiny little village and had done nothing for 60 years, failing infrastructure, broken fire hydrants, all kinds of things. And they were able to get funding to bring their water up to par. So yes, people are getting funding through the state budget. It would be a huge challenge, but both of the people, the mayors and the superintendent I spoke with, both reiterated that it really was key in getting their state representatives on board. So if we do decide to ask for funding, we need to get our state reps in here. We would need you guys to be contacting our state reps saying, we need this, we need this, we need this. Because that's what both of them said, that's how they got the money.
Yeah, several years ago, I did actually submit 3 different projects through that Congressional Direct Spending Program. One was for an RO plant, one was for service line replacements, and then one was at the wastewater plant. 2 of them died right away. One of them, and I can't remember which one, kind of made it to the next step, but then kind of fizzled off. So that was, I think, 2021 or 2022.
So it's still an option if we
Yep.
want to, if we can put something together, we can ask Representative Jenkins and Galeno next year to put it in next year's budget.
This is a massive amount of work. Is this something that, I don't know, would a water ad hoc committee be the move to help with as much labor and activity that we're gonna have to pursue here with grants and contacting state reps and organizing these kinds of things? Is that something that we should look into and support and get community involvement?
Potentially. I mean, it is a lot of work. I mean, the technical side of it can be handled obviously by us. I'm not a people person, in case you haven't noticed, so I'm not always the first one to jump out there and just start talking to people, so I could use some help on that, for sure.
I agree with Commissioner Zink that, I mean, we have some knowledgeable people, and we've had people that have volunteered, and we don't have to have a huge group, but just somebody to help us and guide us that's been doing some research, some studies, and some talking, just to help us through. I think that would be a valuable option to look at, even if it doesn't help anything. I don't see how it could slow it down or hurt anything.
And that's why I've asked a few times and brought it up. And that was why I just wanted a water update tonight, just so that we had an update at least to give people, so it wasn't looking like we just had a town hall and then ignored everything, but it's just been that process of figuring out and waiting to get numbers back and things like that. But that's why I asked Will if thought he was ready to give a water update, and he said yes. But yeah, I agree. I know that Denise was a great grant writer. That is one of them that was at the water town hall, and there's been some other ones. And I know Will talks to a few people quite often that are in the community that, that have a lot of great ideas and have a lot of knowledge as well. But I think it's definitely something to possibly be looking at, to have, just to help, just so that it's not so much on one person. And
Can somebody remind me the process of how we start putting together a water ad hoc committee?
well, we bring it forth as like a resolution,
Mhm.
and it'll be determined like how many commissioners, or if you want any, or how many would sit on there, what city staff would sit on it, and then how many people are on it. And this is one where we may want to look at. I'm just throwing this out there. I know there's some people that have a lot of knowledge that necessarily might not be city residents, and sometimes we have on certain ad hoc it said they don't have to be a city resident as long as they have an interest in it.
Mhm.
So that is something we could look at. It doesn't mean they have to be, but that's up to what we decide. And I would lean to that they don't have to be if they have that water interest and that knowledge.
And you, in your capacity, have the right to appoint people to that committee, correct?
Yes, but we would probably,
We could set parameters.
we'd
but-
put out, yes, exactly. We want to put it out there. I wouldn't want to just pick and choose, like, we don't want to do that.
I
would
wasn't
like it to
asking
be
you to
open.
do
Yeah,
that.
please don't do that. Yeah, we would want to put it out there and see who's even interested, because the thing is, there might be people that we think will be great, and they're just not interested. Either they lack the time, or that's just not what they want to do, so.
A goal that I have, and I'm not saying anything, but I think we need to make it so that our community as a whole are satisfied with it. And it's an analogy I'm thinking of. You could say, I own a restaurant, come on in, our food is safe, but it doesn't taste good and it really doesn't smell good, but you're not going to get food poisoning from it. And when we're trying to attract people to come to the city of Adrian, do we want to say, we've had a problem, we focused on it, we fixed it, and we're going, and we can grow from there. So I think the goal has to be that we have it, that it's not seasonal, it's fixed, it's done, and we're moving forward, and it can be a positive, that we show the reaction for the community for what they've asked for.
The one thing I think, though, we did the ad hoc committee, that I do think is just, it does need direction. So like, what I mean by that is like, what are the goals? Like, it's not just to keep trying to find other things, like maybe narrow, like have this direction of what is feasible, what can actually be done, how are we going to achieve that, and having those set goals, instead of just, well, I have an idea, you know what I mean? But like focusing and bringing that focusing based off of what Will has already presented and what is possible.
Because I think the Tetra Tech study is our plan, and we have to choose which option as a result of that. So I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel on those pieces. And then I think you know, the integration of Eagle and their ability to provide some input, at least with, you know, the other like water systems becomes important, because, you know, mixing groundwater and lake water is very few municipalities that do that. So that's an important piece to play in there. And I'm not sure, I know Commissioner Roberts snagged the ecologist, and I snagged the biologist at the Lake Erie water testing. So there's little different perspectives in terms of the research behind that I think will be important to play how that goes out. And then the bigger piece of, we have Lake Adrian, and if we're just treating the water, we're not fixing the issue with the amount of phosphorus and nitrogen that's going into the tributaries, and then ultimately into that lake, that lead to harmful algae blooms. So that becomes a third piece that I think the water keepers in Lake Erie have been lobbying their state level very well. And we saw kind of the example of where Indiana put in harsher restrictions on how big these massive cattle farms can be. So they can only have 300 cattle within these massive farms before they need to be certified. In Ohio and Michigan, you can have 1,000. And what they found was that when they instituted that into Indiana, those large CAFOs, as they're called, they moved to where? They moved to Michigan, and they moved to Ohio at greater numbers. So now there's more of them in the state here, and if Ohio were to enact something, there would probably be movement into Michigan on top of other things with covering manure, so it's, you know, not open for 180 days, which it can be in Michigan. So there were all sorts of recommendations around there, because every time it rains, and especially this week, that runoff is going into the lake, and as that's there, that's when the algae blooms start. And then once they consume the phosphorus and the nitrogen, that's when the cyanotoxins begin to emerge.
And I do want to thank Commissioner Banky, because he did send that to everybody for us to read, so that we had time to prepare. And I agreed. I was absolutely astounded the difference that you can have in Michigan and Ohio than what you could have in Indiana, and how that contributes to everything that's really going on. And as a local government, I don't see how we can control that, but we should influence in our state legislatures, our county, and things like that about how do we get this moving so we eliminate this. Because if it keeps growing, say Ohio does it before we do, we're going to get more farms up in our area.
And, you know, one of the things that they mentioned was that Lake Erie has seen some improvement, and I'm not sure if we can say the same about Lake Erie or Lake Adrian with our runoffs and the amount of increase manure that's going into tributaries through either the tile system or other means.
Is this something then, speaking of, you know, the ad hoc committee, that we would like to see put forth to move forward for the next meeting?
I would like to see an ad hoc committee with goals, SMART goals, what we used to call them, you know, specific, measurable, timely, where we're at, so that we know. I don't want to just say, okay, what's our mission here? Let's set up the goals, let's set up what are we trying to do, what are we trying to learn from you, and how can we make this process efficient, timely, and effective.
Is that something we can establish in the next meeting and discuss?
I think so, as a discussion. Yes. And, you know, and then we'd have, just to think about before that meeting is, you know, do you want one, do you want two commissioners, do you want no commissioner, you know, like who do you want sitting on there? I think it's always good to have at least one in the room, just to come back and report. I mean, I know Will would be there, but still, it's still good to have that voice as well. But start thinking about the makeup of that group as well.